Hi, everyone. Today, me and Helleborn are going to be talking about one of my short stories, which is Farewell, My Father's Son.
Farewell, My Father's Son is one of the short stories in the Sam in New York anthology, which will be coming out in March, isn't it?
Yes, the first week of March. So it will be on March the 6th, and from then on, every Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tapas.
Okay, that's fantastic. Could you tell us a bit more about the anthology? What is it and how did it come to be?
The anthology is a collection of short stories that I wrote mostly in 2020 as a result of trying to join a number of literary contests and magazines. And some of them I felt like I really wanted to share with the public at large. So I have collected the ones that I can share with the public and basically kind of turned them into the anthology. So it basically is a collection of illustrated short stories, kind of like your, Tales of the North. So in addition to the text, you will be seeing a lot of illustrations as well. So it will not be like a typical Tapas novel where you just see a lot of text. It will basically be kind of like a book format, like an ebook format with text, and then you will see some images as well.
Okay, so it's more text than the comic, but also quite a bit of art as well.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
All right. Back to the short story that we're discussing today. What is the premise of Farewell, My Father's Son, and what is the AU that it takes place in?
The premise is Sam and what would happen if he did become an actor but wasn't successful, unfortunately. So then this is the AU it takes place in, and it explores some of his insecurities because one of the questions we always had, when exploring Sam in New York is Sam really as confident as he says he is, or how he presents himself to be? What if things don't go his way, and not just for a few months but for years at an end? What happens when a lot of things don't go his way and then people start saying things to him that really hurt his self-esteem? How would Sam react to that, and does that shake the way he presents himself and how he sees himself?
So it is similar in a way to Finding Sam, isn't it?
A little bit, yes, it is like that, but I think in a way even darker in some aspects.
Yes, I do think it's much darker, especially in the bits of introspection and his line of thought. It definitely is darker, and the symbolism in it as well. And we're going to talk about this presently. But it explores sort of the same. Storyline, right? The idea of Sam not being successful in his career.
Indeed, yeah. In that respect, it is. And some of the themes that we explore are similar to Finding Sam, like the parent and child relationship, how Sam sees himself, especially in the face of adversity, and what is Sam's true personality? Because once you peel away the confidence and the cockiness that, he's always been kind of pushing himself to express, who is he really? How would you describe the quote, well, not real, but like, the Sam that exists when bad things happen to him?
Yes, that's true. Is Sam here less confident than normally because some bad things have happened to him, or maybe he's always not as confident as he wants to seem?
I think it's kind of both, like, especially like, yes, I think Sam is not really as confident as he seems, generally speaking, but then especially when bad things happen, he's definitely not as confident as he seems.
Experiences.
Hmm.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense because he was a lot of his expectations are overturned. So
Exactly. Yeah. So this story explores the possibility of him trying to, because at the end of the story he does talk about what kind of person he wants to become, but what happens when bad things happen to him and then he thinks about what kind of person he wants to become? Because in Sam New York he always thinks about what kind of person he wants to become, but for the most part nothing really dramatically bad happens to him, at least nothing that really challenges the idea of what he wants to become. But here his fundamental self, the self that wants to be a famous actor, is challenged because it's not happening to him so far. So what's going to happen to him? Like, is he going to continue on this path or listen to his parents and see if there's a way for him to go back to law school? Because that's what his parents want.
Exactly what hurts Sam the most, because if you were a lawyer and you were not successful, he would be disappointed, but not to the same degree. But if successful, then that is really a blow to his confidence.
Mm-hmm. It is, yeah. And that's what we're exploring in this story because for so many years, as we've seen in Sam New York, Sam has been obsessed with the theater. And I think deep down he knows that he's not guaranteed to be successful, but that he's pumped himself up to believe in this. He really wants to believe that he can be successful. And I think, yeah, like you said, the fact that the real world isn't as what he imagined, and this really impacts how he sees himself. And he thinks, maybe I was never that good to begin with. Maybe I should have just listened to my parents because they really do know better for me. But now, what do I do? Like, I'm kind of stuck in between. Like, I still don't want to do what my parents want me to do, the whole law thing. But then what I want to do isn't working out either. Oh, sorry, there's a lag. Can you hear me?
That's definitely a great impasse. Yes, I can. I can.
Oh,
Can you hear
sorry.
me?
Yeah, sorry. I just got this alert. It says that your network bandwidth is low. I think that's why there's such a huge lag.
Okay. Yeah, that's true because sometimes it freezes. It froze for me as well.
Hmm.
A few seconds or if a few moments earlier, yeah. All right, so this pessimistic ideas are also reflected in the symbolism of this piece, and this is one of those things that makes this story stand out among the other pieces in the anthology in terms of style. So, what really struck me and remained with me is that it begins with a dream, and this allows for some really beautiful symbolism. Could you tell us more about the style of this story?
Oh, yes. So basically, this story, as a word of so like basically because this was done for a contest, the first paragraphs and the first paragraph and the 20th paragraph of the story was not written by me. It was written by Owl Canyon Press, which hosted this hackathon contest that this story was written for. And basically it gave me the idea to write about, a darker imagery and how that can connect to Sam's psyche. So let me share the screen with you guys. I'll show you what the given prompt was. Share screen.
Okay, that's a wonderful idea.
Yeah, so this is the cover for the story. And then this is the inner
Oh,
cover.
wow, that's beautiful. And it's what?
Yeah. And yes,
Yeah, great.
you were one of the people I dedicated this whole thing to. Thanks in particular to Hellborn and Tete de Punk for reading these stories and giving me feedback on them before the idea to release this anthology was even conceived. Without you guys' continued interest in my work and characters, I would have never gotten so far.
Oh, this is so lovely. Thank you.
You're welcome. And here's a brief introduction of what the Sam New York anthology is. So basically, it's a companion to the graphic novel Sam New York, which you can read for free on Tapas, Webtoon, Patreon, and the9th.art, and updates every Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This anthology is a collection of short stories about Sam, his family, his friends, exploring the trials and tribulations that they face while growing up and growing old on the Lower East Side. Many of these stories take place in an alternative timeline. So Sam will have a variety of love interests, and then these are Lena, Katya, Frankie, or Tom, and careers lawyer, actor, writer, director, etc., depending on which alternative timeline each story takes place in. So because there's so many alternative timelines and they're also different, perspectives, because it's not only from Sam's perspective, there's also Tom, Frankie, etc. So you can read any of these stories in any order you want. There is no right order.
This is really interesting, and it's very rich in terms of the perspectives and the themes that it offers. Because it's different in this respect from Sam in New York when we only see Sam's perspective, right?
Exactly. So then we get to learn more
So
about
in
the
this
other
anthology,
characters.
yes, exactly.
Yep. So here's a
Um,
disclaimer. Oh, sorry, because the lag. I didn't know. Yeah. Go on.
yeah, I wanted to ask you about the art style of this story.
Yes. So the art style, especially for this story, not every story in this anthology, but for this story, because it is quite dark and surreal, we will be seeing something that is a little bit different from what we see in Sam New York. The cover page of the story is an example.
It's quite disquieting indeed, with distortions, and it fits the whole atmosphere of the piece so well.
hmm Yes. So I will now show you guys the first paragraph, which was not written by me, but by Al Canyon Press. And this is the prompts that I had to continue the story based off on. So it was an odd sized casket, too small for a man, too big for a child. A flag was draped over it, a smallish one. It was carried by 4 men in uniform. Though it was hard to tell for sure from a distance what uniform it was, or even if they were all men. There wasn't room for the usual 6 pallbearers due to the small size of the casket, since it would have made for a comical service to have all 6 jammed together, shoulder to shoulder, crowding around an undersized coffin. So the extra pallbearers were in the ranks of many others in uniform, standing beside a small open grave. The officiant wore a robe instead of a uniform and must have said something because there was a long silence, then a burst of laughter. That's the first paragraph.
Oh, I see. So starting from this, you came up with this story about Sam having a dream and having these well, streams of consciousnesses and thinking about his life, looking back to his decisions.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And then from there, I wrote the other paragraphs. Oh, the image didn't load, so I'll reload the page. But these are supposed to be teeth. So when I reload the page, you guys will be able to see it.
Okay.
Because one of the streams of consciousness that Sam has is of his dream, which is connected to the first paragraph provided by Al Canyon Press. And he thinks about his teeth falling out.
That was such a strong moment in the story.
Yeah, it's taking forever to load for some reason. I'm not sure why.
Um, yeah, maybe if you turn to a different page, maybe when you go back to it, it will load.
Yeah, let me see if the teeth are showing now. Yep, here it is.
Okay.
Here
Oh
are the
yeah,
teeth. Yeah.
okay. Yeah, this is really eerie. I love it.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, but I won't read it out loud because I won't spoil too much of it. But this is like some of the art styles you will see. So this is the officiant, the guy who wears a robe instead of a uniform, and then there's also an element of surrealness with the glitches behind him. And then here are the mysterious figures, right? The pallbearers and the flag on the coffin. And it's interesting to note that the flag is white. It's kind of like the white, surrender.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I see. it makes sense in the logic of the story, and the readers are going to learn what that would mean in the context after
Indeed.
go through the whole story.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, since you've shown some of the art with us, could you talk also about the cover of the entire anthology and the style there?
Yes. So this was actually inspired by some Soviet art that I saw on Pinterest and some old storybooks, that were from the Soviet Union in the 1950s. And I thought having this style would be really cool because, it makes it look like it's dated, especially from the 20th century, like a collection of the Sam New York people's life stories, since they are from the 20th century.
It's lovely. I really love the patterns and it fits really well.
Yeah, I wanted it to look really different from the Sam New York covers, which were more like not pattern based, but visuals based. It was actually more like an illustration with the title on it.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah, so even in these illustrations, we see that it's quite different from everything that you've posted so far.
Hmm. It is indeed, yeah. So I am really excited to share this with you guys, especially since we will be seeing so much more of the other characters. I mean, this is just like an idea I have so far, and it's not going to be actually on Tapas, like the table of contents, because it might change, right? So this is mostly just for my own reference. So after Farewell, My Father's Son, I was thinking of releasing Stillness, which is the story about Tom that we had a previous podcast about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, um, it's great, and we see here five stories uh, so far. So this is wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so all of them are going to come out this year, and I think each story is around 2,000-ish words. So I'm releasing around maybe 500 words or less, depending on how complex it is. Because I do think about releasing it based on complexity. The more complex a certain scene or 500 words is, the less I will be releasing at once. So I think it might take around 3 months or 2 months for one story to be released.
Okay, will you be adding any more stories?
I will as I write more and more.
That's awesome. I wonder how big this will get and how many character perspectives we're going to see because we also have quite a few perspectives that are not seen in Sam in New York. So let's talk a bit about the new characters that are introduced in Farewell, My Father's Son. There
Yes,
is one.
yes, and you can see him here. He's Sam's psychiatrist, and as we can see, he is actually also kind of similar to Sam's parents in that he also came from Odessa, and he also had immigrated from the Russian Empire around the turn of the 20th century. And to get into Sam's mindset and to also get him to relax more, he talks to him in his mother tongue, Yiddish. And this is also a reflection of the fact that Sam couldn't find what he was looking for with his parents because his parents are not that supportive of him, even though they know he feels terrible about his current situation. They criticize him more than really comfort him. And well, they're not really mean to him or anything, but Sam feels like he's a burden to them, so he doesn't want to talk too much about his own feelings to them. So this is why he turns to Dr. Glickman, who kind of becomes like a substitute father to him in many ways.
Is the therapy working for Sam? What does he think about it?
Hmm. I don't think he really thinks it's that helpful. I think you will see in the story, but he questions whether therapy is really that therapeutic because in one aspect that he doesn't like about therapy, it's that he's paying someone who doesn't know him that well to listen to his problems. They are not listening to him because they want to. And this is something that he doesn't really feel entirely comfortable with. Like it's like he's making it an obligation for this person to listen to him just because he's paying this person.
Okay, see, so there is again a problem with the connection he has with people, that there's no one that he can really talk to, is it?
Exactly. At least in this AU, because he feels like he screwed up so badly that he doesn't know who to talk to about with his problems, you know? And he doesn't want to be judged, and yet he feels like he's judging himself as well. And he doesn't want to burden other people. Because he always felt like if he talked too much about his own problems, people will find him annoying, or they will find him whiny, or they will just say, "Why does it concern me? That's your problem, Sam. Why don't you fix it?"
Yes, that makes sense. That makes sense, especially in relation to his parents, who, well, I think that Sam feels a bit, humbled by his failure in a way, because he went against his parents' wishes and will, and they had arguments, and now it is sort of proven that they were right, in worrying that he will not be very successful as an actor. So I guess this, in many ways, makes it more difficult for Sam to talk to his parents, doesn't it? I mean, he doesn't really just come to them and say, "Okay, you were right. I give up. I'm defeated." He cannot do this. I don't know what kind of person would be able to do this easily.
Exactly. And that's why he does feel a little bit awkward around his parents, which is still not as bad as in Finding Sam, because in Finding Sam, something very tragic happens to one of his parents,
Yes, yes, that's true. That's true.
which is a
Um,
further barrier. At least here, nothing really has happened except for his own failure and his guilt. You know, he feels responsible for his lack of success.
In a way, the situation is reversed, because in Finding Sam, we see his parents feeling more guilty because Sam has followed the their wishes and it did not work out. So maybe, so there we see their parents thinking, maybe we pushed him too hard. Maybe we should have let him just do what he wanted to. Maybe he would have been more successful.
Exactly. Hmm.
And there is another character here that he wanted to be to form a connection with, to form a deeper bond, and that is Katya.
Yes, yeah, we talk about her here as well, and he does have his share of regrets regarding his relationship with Katya.
Yes, and another focus of the story is Sam's persona, Sam Raimi. So, how is he different from the real Sam? And why did Sam make him up?
I think it's because he feels like his real self is not that appealing to the general public, especially since, you know, he does come from the quote slums of the Lower East Side. And he wants to make like he wants to project an image that is not from the slums, you know, someone who is really, you know, well read, but really glib, funny, and positive. While the real Sam, he tries to be positive, but you know, he does have his own insecurities, and he feels that if anyone knew about them, then he just comes off as boring or whiny or just plain unsuccessful. So he always feels like he has to get into a role, which is Sam Raimi, to project an image of success.
That's true. So Sam Raimi is the successful man that he wanted to be, right?
Exactly.
Mm. Okay, this is very nicely seen throughout this story, but well, we won't go into a lot of details because it is really a story about concepts and atmosphere and symbols, and well, over explaining will spoil a lot of things. So is there anything you would like to add about this, or we'll just leave it at that and leave your readers to discover everything else?
I think I think I should leave it to you guys to discover everything else because there's a lot of things in this story that I don't want to spoil. And I think this is a really great introduction to it so far. The imagery we've discussed, some of the characters, we've also discussed the main psychological barriers that Sam is going to have to tackle in the story. So I think we're good.
Yeah, that's great. It's indeed a wonderful introduction, and it leaves room to a lot of mystery for the reader to discover the rest of it. And I'm also glad that we did an introduction to the anthology, because there are a lot of great things that we're going to discover over there.
Definitely. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you as well. And this was really interesting and informative. I cannot wait to see the anthology published.
Yes, I mean either, and continue writing short stories for it. Thank you so much. Bye.
Oh, yes, that is really exciting. Okay, bye.